Welcome back to JohoTests, the podcast, where we take a deep dive into the world of software testing and all its impacted areas. In today's episode, we're exploring the vital importance of quality in software products and how it intertwines with the ever-evolving landscape of social media and its regulations. I'm thrilled to have our industry expert, Lerato Ntwampe, who is a social media legal consultant, cyber safety enthusiast, and speaker. And she is here to unpack what quality truly means in this digital age. Welcome, Lerato.
Thank you so much for having me, Palesa.
So glad you're here. So normally what we do at JohoTests, we ask people to introduce themselves and tell us how they would want us to receive them and the work they've done and who they believe they are.
Okay, cool. So as you said, my name is Lerato. I am a 33-year-old woman in tech, and I'm a sister to 4 siblings. And yeah, I think, the rest is about my work and why I do it. I think I do it because of my own childhood experiences. And also I think I do it because of just my passion for, the social media space and just how we interact with it as individuals. So
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Another thing we like to do is before we get into the depths of what social media is and how we actually got here, what is quality to you? How would you explain quality for you?
Okay. Quality assurance or just quality?
Just quality.
Sure.
Just the concept
Quality,
of something being a quality thing
Yeah.
for you. Yeah.
I think quality for me is something that's supreme, like something that is good, like best.
Yeah.
Like we tried everything to make sure that this is like quality for you.
100%.
Yeah. It reminds me of, I think when I was growing up, my mom liked dressing me with this black and white W app. I won't give them a shout out, but I think you do know.
I get you. I know exactly.
And that was the definition of quality when I was growing up.
Oh,
that
nice.
Yeah, if you're wearing that brand, like
I mean, it still has that.
It still has
that weight.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I agree. Okay. So I invited you today because I've seen, heard, listened to you speak on social media and the power that it has over brands and the world at the moment, right? And it became a very interesting topic for me to say, actually, I don't think this is something we discuss much, especially in the software product world. And I don't think we even take it into consideration when we're making these products, right? But I wanted to just ask you how impactful is social media actually to applications, phone applications, laptop applications? What impact would it have to like a brand or a business or even people that are using these
Sure.
products?
I mean, I think social media has become very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And it's used, for various things. It's used to create, it's used to, monetize. People make money out of it. But, in the same breath, people can lose their careers because of social media. People can use social media to win elections. So social media has just become that money-making cash cow machine that, if you depending on how you're using it, I mean, if you're using it for the good, it might benefit you. But also if you're using it for for bad things, then the impact of that carries so much weight
100%.
And it can literally destroy nations. That's how powerful social media is. So for brands, it can also make and break a brand. It's just that easy, just by a click of a button, and a lot of things can happen. If something can trend, sometimes it doesn't need to trend for people to get on the bandwagon, and then it just leaves a very bitter taste in other people's mouths, and they just like, I decided with that brand. So yeah, it can be good, but I think we've seen the bad amplified and the weight of the bad.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, as in your expertise, do you think there are? I mean, I don't know if there are regulations for social media.
Yeah.
And if there are any regulations, how would you advise quality assurance people or software product developers or software product teams to consider the impact of social media while making these products? Because I don't think we're having these conversations. Yeah.
So, I mean, social media is not really that regulated in South Africa. But there are certain aspects of it that are regulated. So privacy, for example, is regulated in terms of POPIA, which is the Protection of Personal Information Act. Also, it's sort of regulated. So data, e-commerce is also regulated by the Electronic Transactions Act. What? Electronic Communications and Transactions Act also sort of regulates the space in terms of any tech that is like e-commerce, data messages, digital signatures. So that's also regulated. And then there are certain aspects like, influencers, if you're going to affiliate yourself, or advertising on social media. There is the advertising regulatory board, which obviously influencers have to sort of say that certain content is sponsored or affiliated with a certain brand, or it's been paid for. So that can sort of fit in. And obviously the Consumer Protection Act, that also sort of guides, how certain contracts are sort of entered into, whether those contracts are fair or not. So there are certain regulatory instruments that would regulate certain aspects of social media and how it would work. Obviously, when it comes to children, which is not really the conversation that we're going to have, we would have to then consider the Film and Publication Board, which regulates, content, and it regulates the classification and gives consumer advisory, basically. So the 16 LV or 16 SNL or 13V. So it basically gives that direction, and it also protects children in terms of children being exposed to being exposed to pornography. That's why there would be the elements that would be, or the age restriction and the consumer advisory. But in terms of social media, it regulates child pornography. So that's considered illegal in South Africa, as well as child sexual violence. So any children that are depicted in sexual violence, social media platforms have a duty and a legal obligation to get that removed, as well as child sexual abuse material, which is considered child porn in South Africa. So that would be illegal. So depending on which area of social media you want to speak to, there are certain regulatory frameworks. But I think one more that I want to include is obviously the Cyber Crimes Act as well, which obviously would regulate your things like cyber extortion, cyber harassment, unlawful acts or unauthorization or unlawful access to your devices. So that act would also play.
And I think these are important acts that we should be educated on, or have put at the top of our minds when creating platforms or applications that would then be used by people, right? But how would you then advise organizations to factor this thought in? And at what stage should we be having this discussion? Should we have this discussion when we are creating new stuff only? Or should we then say, no, even for stuff that's existing? And for a quick example, if somebody goes and posts, so you as a brand, a software product brand, have released some form of application and it does really fancy and lovely things. Somebody on social media comes through and says, this application that you did has now, I don't know, like taken something of mine, or it's offensive in a particular way. How would you advise an organization to take that into consideration, and what would be the process of mitigating that issue?
So I think having a legal unit in a software development is important, especially in managing reputational risks from misinformation. It might be defamatory or even discriminatory content that might even flow, either from your specific software that you've created, your application that you've created. It's also important, I think, in ensuring the drafting and vetting of the terms of use and service, and the content policies that exist with your application. So this would obviously include privacy clauses or confidentiality clauses, how information will be collected, how it will be used, to ensure that you obviously comply with POPIA, ECTA, as well as the Consumer Protection Act. I think it also will, having somebody in the legal department, can assist in also advising in terms of marketing disclosures. So, for example, if the brand now decides that they want to, rope in an influencer to sort of advertise or amplify this, software that they've created or this app that they've created, they need to be, ensure that, this person knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's not just somebody that has no clue.
Just working from
Just working from, so you need to know that that person, is well versed in the subject, and that they promote the brand well, because we've seen in certain instances where, the wrong choice of an influencer has detrimental impact on the brand. Even if, it's got nothing to do with the brand, just their personal life, that can also have a damaging impact on the brand itself. So I think those are the things that I think which are unnecessary, and obviously ensuring compliance with the specific regulatory instruments that exist. I think a legal person is definitely necessary in that, just to ensure that, they don't just fix, the bugs, but they ensure that there's verification of compliance with privacy laws, consumer protection, and data security. And sometimes even IP, intellectual property. Sometimes that, you think you've got this brilliant idea until somebody has been cooking it months before. And because nobody bothers to check, with trademarks or this PIC to check whether this idea exists, now you find yourself with this big launch. You've spent so much money on this product and you can't use it because it might be,
belongs to
somebody else. There's IP infringement. So I think that's also quite important. And also ensuring that, the brand is not exposed to fines and litigation, which can be very, very costly.
Yeah. And in the software testing world, there is a form of testing called compliance testing, which is basically on the focus on all these regulations that we would have to then consider in software testing. But I mean, from a social media perspective, we could also take the inputs of people.
Absolutely.
As usability, because they are giving you the experience with the product that you are currently using or they're using. However, when do we tell when something is legit and when it's not? When do companies or organizations know when to take something seriously versus maybe with this one we can bypass? Or should they be doing that, actually?
I think it's a difficult one because, something small can really, really trigger something to trend. And when something trends, there's just this culture that, I also need to contribute. I also need to tell my story.
And no organization is going to have control over
absolutely,
that, right?
You have no control over that. So sometimes it does happen where, something might be trending either on X or on TikTok, and then it gains momentum because other people are like, oh my word, I can also relate. Let me also tell my story. And that amplifies. And at the end of the day, you might think this one small customer who was aggrieved by us, is just going to go home and rest. But you don't know the kind of impact or influence they have outside. And also you don't know how much their story or, their grievance has on other people that can also compel them to sort of, move into the cyber mob. I always call it a cyber mob. So a cyber mob is when other people sort of join you and we all have this particular interest in either destroying a brand or destroying somebody based on what they have said on social media. So that's how, the whole sense of or this whole notion of cancel culture comes from. It's because of a cyber mob where people just decide that we're taking these people down. And unfortunately, if it gets to that point, it is difficult for the brand to sort of now bounce back, to resuscitate, which is something that you could have probably mitigated
by
earlier
just
on.
taking it into consideration. So
Absolutely.
are we then saying no comment should be ignored, or how? Because I still don't know how, at which point do we take a case or a comment of somebody on social media regarding a particular brand or software product as this is serious, or versus it's just an opinion?
I think there's certain, complaints or certain comments that people make that maybe let's say it's linked to the quality of your app, for example.
Okay.
Then do an investigation, see if you do a similar thing with the app, that happens. For example, so if you are able to sort of like fact check and see before you even jump the gun. Because sometimes what companies do is that they'll deny, but then one person has expressed it online, but maybe other people didn't have the same courage, or maybe they didn't even have social media. But then they can sort of relate that I actually experienced this as well. And I think the power of social media is that people are able to sort of join the bandwagon and say that, oh, I also experienced this. And sometimes it just takes one person to sort of complain about it. Because some people are just like, I'm going to complain and then nothing is going to happen. But sometimes one person can complain and other people feel like, oh, okay, I've also experienced this. And then it gives more and more people the courage. So if you're going to look at one comment and think, maybe there's nothing to do, like maybe we shouldn't pay attention to this. You never know, because sometimes those sort of comments amplify, and sometimes they might not amplify at that time. Maybe something else might come up, maybe from another competitor. And then people bring it to say, oh no, actually, even that other brand, Leona, it does people dirty like this. No. And then that can sort
of... That's reputational damage at that
100%.
Point. Yeah. And I mean, at that point, you've lost so much trust, and it's going to take strong marketing and strong influence to try to get that thing back.
100%.
Because also, I think we're having a conversation earlier to say the internet does not forget.
Yep, the internet doesn't. It doesn't.
So you could fix a thing, but even with the good that you do, it just takes one person to say, yeah, but remember, you did that as well.
Yep, and people take screenshots these days.
So nothing is really left. Nothing should actually be left to, it'll figure itself out, or it'll just die down. Which is great. But I'm also just going to move into another big topic, and I don't know when or how we should be tackling this as a software product house, or people that are in software, and this move of AI. Like, how do you think AI is going to influence quality assurance or the quality of these software products and the move of social media? I mean, do we know, like I said, how do we know something is real, something is not? Sometimes not only from a human perspective to say, is this somebody just complaining, or is this a real issue? How do we know something is just like AI generated versus a human being having a real issue, right? Like, how do you guys fix that stuff?
So I think AI is quite a big topic at the moment because of how the impact that we've seen. And I think it's transforming both the legal and the quality assurance landscape. And we're seeing, more and more automated moderation and bias detection. So quality assurers need to ensure that AI systems comply with anti-discriminatory laws and transparency obligation. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is obviously data privacy concerns. So AI driven personalization can conflict with Papia's data minimization as well as purpose limitation. So what that means, it means that obviously personal information must be adequate, relevant, and not excessive in relation to the purpose for what it is processed. And then there's also purpose limitation, where personal information must be collected for a specific, explicitly defined and lawful purpose, and not for further processing in a manner that is incompatible with the purpose. And unfortunately, AI thrives on more and more data, and the flexible use of that data, which obviously compromises the compliance of Papia. So we already have that as a hurdle. And then also the second bit is AI generated content liability. So who do you sue when AI does, like who do you sue? Like
That's
how
such
do
a
you
great question.
determine accountability,
Yeah.
from AI generated content? So that's also another issue that we sort of have to look into. And also, quality assurance teams, I think, need to look at explainability and traceability of AI decisions.
Yes.
So how did we get to this decision before we actually, ran with it? So we need to also look at that. So I think those are the 3 points, I think, when it comes to AI that we're seeing, where overuse of information, so over processing of information.
Yes.
And also sometimes using information for confidentiality purposes. So, for example, if you work for an organization and you're using people's personal information because you don't know how to answer certain, queries or whatever, and then you just upload their personal information on AI, that can be compromise their privacy, and their personal information confidentiality as well. So I think those are the about four things that I think AI that we need to take into consideration when we look at AI.
Wow, this was so insightful. I mean, there's 1 million questions we could ask you about social media and the impact it has on software products. But I think my biggest takeout here is quality assurance teams do have a lot of work to consider and to take into factor when we are developing or signing off these products, and also then having organizations know how to support their teams should there be a mishap or some kind of error that was skipped during the development phase and was then put onto a live environment. But again, I don't think we're having the conversation enough, and I don't think there is much exposure. Maybe final question. Where do we find social media experts outside? Like, are there people, like, are there companies? Do we call people? How do we get access to people that can advise on this before, like, for other organizations that don't have this in practice right now?
Yeah, I think, I wouldn't really necessarily just say just social media experts. I think there's, the space has grown so much that now there are also AI experts. There's data protection experts. So I think, the pool is quite big now in terms of certain things that you have to look into.
Sure.
And, there are ITC lawyers as well who can probably also assist you with certain of these things.
Yeah.
And I think a lot when it comes to, software development, we know that data is king at the moment. So I think getting data experts, ITC lawyers, and just depending on what sort of sector you're in, you need to be able to get the right people in who are also going to assist you. So I deal a lot more with employee and employment law, as well as child protection laws, in terms of how I look at tech and how tech influences those sort of people. So there's a lot. I think that the pool is definitely there, and I think even if you're listening to this, like, there are careers that are still not even careers, but you can create a career
100%.
Because there's so much happening in the world right now, and people need
100%.
answers. So I think there's opportunity in trying to find ways where people can actually find solutions. You might be sitting at home and you might have a solution, and that career didn't exist. My career didn't exist, and I created it.
That's lovely.
So it's possible. I think once you see a problem and you have a solution to it, you can definitely go for it. So I think there's more, and I think, software developers need to also, don't be afraid of legal. And I think that's the worst that people can do. Getting legal at the end. It's so much better to get legal in the beginning, because then they can help you navigate how to get to the end.
100%.
And they can save you a lot more money in the beginning than at the end, because at the end we don't know how it's going to end. but it might end with you losing a lot of money,
Yeah.
and a lot of consumers, and a lot of mistrust
100%.
from the consumers or your audience.
That is so great. Look, again, this was so great. I mean, I don't know how we took social media, and I think I've been exposed to social media as just a fun platform, but I mean, the world is changing, the platforms are changing. There's a lot that LinkedIn has caught on to, a lot more business minded, a lot more serious. Like, they're still fun, but there is seriousness to it. And I think having somebody like you has shown us that social media is not just a play place. Like, it can have real big reputational issues or detrimental results if you're not checking into it and checking how people are using it towards the brand that you have produced. Again, thank you for joining us. I just wanted to know, where can people find you if they want more information?
Thanks for having me, Palesa. I mean, people can find me on LinkedIn. It's Lerato Ntwampe. You can also follow me on Instagram, Lerato Ntwampe, and on Facebook. I'm still on Facebook. Lerato Ntwampe as well.
You should be on all the social media platforms, man. There's nothing to be guilty about. But yeah, I think we've come to the end of our show today. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Catch you on the next one.